Network.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Asia Storm.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
We sincerely do apologize for the impromptu break in transmission right in the middle of a very important communications from the Secretary of State for Communications and IT, Dr. Martin Mungwa. Would like to get right back into that.
Right. Okay. So I was trying to. You asked me a question why La Republique is sort of jumping all the steps all the way to step 7. So as I said, I hope you are getting me now.
Yes.
La Republique knows very well that they cannot go through all these steps, and there's a reason for that. If you look at the accord that La Republique signed with France in 1959, that accord stipulated that France is going to uh, take 50% of all La Republique exports. So La Republique or Cameroon as a whole is like a farm, and the owner of that farm is France. So France makes sure that when we export our goods overseas, they automatically cut 50% of it, and the rest 50% is left to La Republique politicians. And what do? They all behave like scavengers, including the French. So they will steal as much as they can. And that's what they've been doing since 1960. Nobody cares about the lives of those who live in there. It's just the political clique. And essentially now you have the Betty Buru clan. They make sure that they hijack everything is of monetary value that's coming to the country, and they've actually taken the country hostage. So that is what is happening now. You have to understand there are two things you can do. If you want to fund any project in La Republique, you can either bribe every member of government, and then they can give you the authority to do the job. And they don't care whether you bring in technicians from overseas or you take them locally. They don't care. It's all on you. You can do whatever you want. Or you give them the money, and believe me, when you give them the money, they will embezzle every penny. If you take the projects of the past, none has ever been finished. Whether you take roads, whether you uh, uh, take the seaport, whether you take some of the installations such as the electricity, the hydroelectric power, all of that, nothing is complete today, because what happens when the international community gives money to La Republique, they just steal that money and send it back to personal bank accounts overseas. And that's why nothing works. Absolutely nothing works in that country. And that's the modus operandi of that government. It's just a group of thieves who just steal from the common man. And that's why it is very difficult if you don't apply very stringent legal sort of procedures on the government in Yaoundé. There's no way they can change, because first of all, they know that the French will cover them, because whenever they export anything from Cameroon, the French cut 50% and they are left with the rest. So they are all in collusion to make sure that they exploit the country and they exploit the people. And that's why I call them scavengers. They have no interest to develop that country. All they want is to exploit it. And that's the scenario that we have today. Over to you.
We have Mime Asia. We have Mime Asia
Yes,
Storm in the house. Let's not forget that. I believe she'd like to say something or ask a question.
yes, ma'am, you got it right. Yes, I would like to say something. Yes, Sir Secretary. Um, I thank you for the seven steps. They sound phenomenal and exactly what a country needs to build. Um, what I'd like to know is during these years, and it's been like 60 years that all of this has been happening with, and thousands and thousands and thousands of lives sacrificed. Over all of these years, the Federal Republic of Amazonia is still being catastrophically murdered. And all of these beautiful seven steps have not even started yet. I'm trying to grasp why, what, why has it taken so long? And what are you doing different now that makes us believe that now, as opposed to before, we can expect change, sir?
Thank you very much. And yeah, I think you have to, or Amazonians, and if I go there, I really appreciate you joining us today and to thank you for the efforts that you've made in order to bring our story to the world. We really appreciate that effort. And coming to the Amazonian question, people do not understand the history of Amazonia. We were put into this chokehold with La Republique right from the beginning of our independence. People do not know that Amazonia was the first country in Africa to conduct free and fair elections. And there was a transfer of power from the incumbent to the opposition without a single soul killed. And when the time for independence showed up, this botched independence that was done at the United Nations with collusion with the British that literally gave us away to La Republique and being a minority in that process, in spite of the fact that we're told that we're going to create a federal system where it will be two equal partners, which actually never took place. We have been a hostage of La Republique ever since. And you can understand that even when we have had our elected members of parliament, La Republique came and simply changed it and put somebody they can control. And that story has been going on till today. Because when you look at the fight that we have right now, La Republique is actually funding alternative governments or alternative leaders so that they can work just like those in the past. So it's been a very, very difficult period for Amazonians from the beginning because, first of all, we did not have any international support. And even when we tried to do anything internally, nobody ever listened to us until now that we have social media, and now that we can rise up and actually do something. And with the help of the American government, whereby we've been able to have this resolution 684. It's only now that we are beginning to have the strength to fight La Republique. Remember that this is not the first time that La Republique has been involved in crisis. When there was an internal revolt in French Cameroon prior to independence, when the real leaders of the revolution felt that France should be out of Cameroon so that they can have genuine independence. What happened? They brought in French militias, they brought in a helicopter gunship, and people were murdered in cold blood. People were just killed and nobody spoke. And in fact, the current government is actually using that experience of the past because they were able to collude with the French to kill their own countrymen, to at least to feel that they can do the same to Amazonians and nobody's going to speak. And that's exactly where we find ourselves today. It's a very complicated history until you actually go into the events that happened after, prior, and after independence. Will you be able to understand exactly the sort of chokehold that we've been under since the so-called independence? And this 1959 accord will understand that this accord signed secrecy. We had no idea about this until we for it. And that's when we pulled out this trump card and we've just been sold to the French. And that's been the story up to today. I hope I've answered your questions. I'm open for more clarification.
Sharing that
Over
to
to you.
people. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
My Major Storm, you have something else to ask right now?
I think
After you, I guess.
the other question.
Would you rather I ask now? No.
I think you also
Sir?
said, what
Yes.
are we going to do that is different?
Yes. Yes. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. What are we going to do that is different? If you look at the structure of the interim government, we want to have financial independence so that we can control our economies, so that we can adjust the value of our currency based on the World Economic Platform. The fact that La Republique's currency is tagged to the euro simply means that the economy of La Republique is controlled by European Central Bank. And there is no way can we have investments in not only in La Republique, but in all French speaking African countries because the cost of production is just too high. And that's why staple food like rice or even corn or whatever, they cannot sustain because of imports from abroad, from China. Let me give you another situation that they find today. Yaoundé has hurriedly signed this agreement to join the Economic Commission for Central African States. And they want to join this big free trade zone in Africa. Do you know the impact of that? This is going to kill all the local industries because of lack of competition. Most of the non-CFA countries, they have their own currency, but our currency is the French franc or the euro. There is no way that the cost of production in the CFA zones will be able to match the cost of production in other areas where they have their local currency. So, what is going to be the net result? Most of the products will be flowing into La Republique. And that's why I'm asking the politicians. So, are you building these ports for imports or for exports? What sort of value added commodities do you have locally in order to export to justify the building of three ports in a country where one performs less than 10% capacity? That is the question. And I don't think they have an answer for that. But if we have our currency, we are going to regulate our economy and we are going to make sure that our cost of production is sufficiently low so that we can attract entrepreneurs from overseas. And that's the only way we can grow internally. We are going to increase consumer spending. We are going to put more emphasis on investments. We are also going to increase government spending through the building of schools or hospitals or facilities that will create a very healthy middle class. And only at that time, we can have net exports. And net exports come in when you can provide value added within the economy so that you can justify exporting goods to other countries. So you can now have the results for hard currency, and that hard currency can be plowed back into the economy in order to improve on it. So this is the plan that the interim government has for Ambazonia. Over to you.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
Okay. One thing I like being here on the liberation movement is the fact that you're always coming in with facts, wisdom, and I mean things, a lot of hidden stories that people are not aware of. So the last time you talked about the expenditure method to GDP and stuff, and how La République du Cameroon doesn't even operate in that, how they don't operate in any method, any expenditure method, income method in regards to GDP. And now tonight you're talking about the steps for an aspiring nation, which La République du Cameroon seems to obviously is not following through. And in all of these, I'm wondering, the only thing we can see is the fact that La République du Cameroon, the government, most obviously doesn't care about anything else, anyone else, but filling their pockets. My question tonight is, where do we go with all of this?
Thank you. Very good question. And I'm very happy that Ms. Asia Storm is here because she actually made a suggestion that we believe that it can work. I consider that the low hanging fruit. And that low hanging fruit is to put pressure on La Republique for a fact finding mission. We must have a fact finding mission so that they can come and establish the atrocities that have been committed by La Republique soldiers. It's only then we can talk about the consequences. These are legal consequences, which means that they have to support the interim government at the International Court of Justice so that La République must come to book. So long as they do not know that they can be responsible for the atrocities that they are committing, they will never care, because behind the shadow you have France, and all they are doing, they are exploiting the resources in La République, and they care less what happens. So if America can put pressure such that we have a fact-finding mission and let them see for themselves exactly what is happening in Amazonia, will they be able to come to the table? And I think the suggestion that Miss Asia Storms suggested earlier on is a good one. And we can see, look at what is happening in Ukraine. I mean, it's just so, I don't know. I mean, whether you are in America or you're in Africa, so long as you're a black person, nobody cares about yourself. We've seen this all over. When the war started in Ukraine, what happened? The Americans have spent more than $3 billion helping that country. But nothing has been done to Amazonia beyond the resolutions and recommendations. And when you look at it, in as much as we admire and we congratulate and we thank the Americans for doing that, when you look at it, it's like a bull without teeth. Because it's all about recommendation. They say, oh, we want the two parties to sit down. How do you expect a genocidal regime to sit on a table to talk to the opposing camp without some element of legal or force placed behind them? It is impossible. And that's why this war has been going on for 5-6 years and nobody cares. They don't care, because what have sanctions done? Nothing. They had the AGOA sanctions, it's done nothing. They had the visa ban, it did nothing. They had some sort of limited security engagements with La République. They took away money on the left-hand side and they gave it back to La République on the right-hand side. So they're actually emboldened. They know that nothing can happen to them until they do something for them to know that those who are committing these atrocities must come to book. It's only then that they think that they can come to the table in order to discuss this matter. I think that's what we have to do. And I thank Ms. Storm for
All
giving us
right. In regards to Mime Aisha's question, I don't know. It's a very, very, very good one. Just like Dr. Martin Mungwa said just now, the putting pressure on a fact-finding mission, that would go definitely a long way. I mean, do we have, Dr. Martin Mungwa, or maybe Aisha, do you have suggestions on ways we could do this, or the interim government could go about this?
Let me suggest one before Ms. Storm takes over. We have the Black Caucus in America. We have activists in Africa and in America. We have black activists. These are the people who can put pressure on La République government, or can put pressure on the American government to make sure that they support us on the ICJ case, which has, I understand, it's moving, but it's moving rather slowly. I mean, imagine what happened to Ukraine. More than 40 countries supported the case for Ukraine, and the case in Ukraine is far more advanced than the case in Amazonia, because even that people recognize the importance of life. But it just appears that when it comes to black people, whether it is in America or in Africa, nobody really cares. And I think that's very disturbing. And I believe that we have a lot of powerful people in the Black Caucus and other activists that can make this happen in a very short period of time. Over to you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So
Yes,
black
sir. I want to
activists.
comment.
Well, just an announcement. Yes, there is a phone line. You watching, their viewers, of course, your questions are valued. So there's this phone line for you, just in case you have something to ask, something you say, you can just dial that number and get through to us in the studio, and then we'll have your questions here.
I think
Okay.
Ms. Storm wanted to say something, if I'm not mistaken.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think, please, let's
Yes, sir. That is going to happen. Black Americans, black people all over the world. It's time for us to come together, and that's what this is all about. Before you go to people, you have to learn it. You have to understand what you're taking to them, and so that's the process, the part of the process we're at right now. That I'm sitting here with you to get information that's vital to all of us. What I want you and everyone in the listening ear of this to understand is that I'm an educated woman. I've been through everything, and I didn't even know Amazonia existed. And believe me, I'm not alone. And therefore, we have to bring this forward because these are atrocities. This is murder, blatant murder. So and everything else. But so, yes, sir, I'm in agreement with you that it is time for those people of color who are so impactful, they have so much reach, that to come forward. And so I believe they're on the way. But I have another question. Is that okay, Ms. Starr?
Sure.
Okay. All right. And all the wonderful steps that I listened to. And it makes me feel that obviously um, people who understand the structure of a country worked on this plan, these steps. I know that you said that these steps are not fully uh, disclosed right now. That for the sake of this space here. Um, but how will you build a strong? I didn't hear schools in none of the steps. I know that maybe it's tucked in there somewhere in one of the steps. I'm not sure. But I know that educating our children is the most important of steps. And I heard um, Ms. Starr mention it, and I was so glad to hear that. What are the plans to bring back the schools and bring them back with incredible vigor, with structure and great educators and very high esteem and those things? Is there any kinds of plans with that? I need to hear that. We need to hear that. The people need to hear that.
Thank you. Extremely good question. I hope because I did talk about education, maybe it was a little more generic. Now, this is the plan. The short term plan is to make sure that we can have our children go to school. How do you do that? We can either create a buffer zone, which means that every school district is a no go area to soldiers. And that will be the first guarantee that children can actually go to school, regardless of the quality of education that they're going to have. The interim government has a plan for education, the education curriculum. We have to transform our educational curriculum to meet the needs of our society. We have highly educated ambassadors overseas who understand what it takes to have a good education. I was a university professor for 14 years. So, and I'm a licensed professional engineer. And that means that when it comes to the technical aspects of it, it's people like me who are going to sit down and understand how this system will be put into place. I am not alone. So we are talking about if children really have to go back to school, we need this buffer zone. And this buffer zone can be achieved either through UNESCO, or they may have to bring in soldiers or peacekeeping forces to make sure that these children are actually protected. We don't want our children to stay at home indefinitely. The only reason why we are so concerned is what we've seen recently, where children has been used as targets, target practice by the La Republic military, and they try to make everyone believe that we are the ones killing children. We have no interest in killing our own children. That is very clear. So on the short term, we want a buffer zone. We want a no-go area for soldiers so that children can go to school. Or we need a ground peacekeepers so that all the areas should be protected so that children can go to school. On the long term, we for education. We have a plan for vocational colleges, because this is where we are going to train technicians who can meet the immediate needs of society. We want to train technicians. We need more technicians than engineers in the short term. We need water and sanitation, because you cannot have water without sanitation. We need that to be provided. Then we have to go into roads, and then we have to go into educational establishments, and thereby we are going to create the foundation for a healthy and a very strong economy. We know how to do it. We are highly educated, and I believe that we have all the talents to put that into place. If only the international community can help us do that. Over to you. Thank you.
All right, we've heard it from Dr. Martin Mungwa while we wait for calls to come in. I think I should read the step one because you sort of like mentioned it in there amongst the institutions mentioned. You said an aspiring country rather must build up institutions, particularly in public health, sanitation, law, education, and ethnic. But like you said, it was generic. It was in the group. Education and ethics are all part of this. And truly, from your communicate an aspiring nation, these are like basics because they are even like the basic um, the word basic needs of a country. These are the like vital, yeah, that's it, the vital needs of a
Let me add
country.
something to that.
For now, I think you have answered virtually all of my concerns as regard this. Dr.
Let me
Martin
add
Mungwa.
something to it. Let me add something. It is important that we train instance in public health, sanitation, education, and ethics. That is very important. Ethics is the foundation of civic responsibility. La Republique does not believe in ethics. We have to make sure that ethics is taught so that we can have civic responsibility. That's the only way you can grow a population, you can grow a civil society so that they understand what the whole essence of being patriotic is all about. Every manager, every director in La République believes in France and not in La République. They believe that they are answerable to the French, and that's why they are ready to do anything. They will sell, they will steal, because they know that no matter what they do, the French will do nothing to them because they take direct orders from the French. This has to be understood by the international community. They actually encourage managers and directors to be corrupt because that's the only way they can control them. The moment they discover that you have an independent mind, you have no use to them. And that's why they don't want to sit down with Dr. Sako to talk, because they can't corrupt him. Let people understand this. They only want corrupt individuals. And you realize that that's what they've been going behind the scene, whether it is Cho Ayaba, whether it is Chris Anu, whether it is Marianta, whether it is whoever, Sisiko Ayuk Tabe. These are all people who can be corrupted. That's what La Republic likes, because that's the same thing that the French does to them. They only look for leaders who can be corrupted. And that's why the real fighters for independence were all killed. They gave power to people who didn't want to have independence. And that's the same thing they're looking among Amazonians. They're looking for Amazonians who don't want independence. So you should understand the modus operandi of the Francophone government or La Republique government, and it's the same thing that France is doing. They did that in Haiti, they did that in Rwanda, they did that in Ivory Coast, they did it in Burkina Faso. And that's why they're kicking them out of their countries, having discovered the trick. It's no longer a trick.
I've been wondering, like, why have a government if the government itself has chosen to be lawless, unaccountable, and practically guilty? Why have that kind of government? What is the essence? The essence of government is supposed to, impose laws and give order to a nation. But then the government itself is guilty of many atrocities and crimes. What's the point of the government?
Well, I think we lost touch of my first answer. La Republique is not a state, it's a vassal state. It's a penal country where everybody is corrupt except those in power. You have to understand this. It is a farm, it's not a country. The French come, they harvest, they take 50%, and they say, okay, you can do whatever you want to do with the rest. This information is in a World Bank report of 2011. You have to understand. We can, if anybody's interested in that paper, we can look for it and share with everybody else. So it is not a country; it's a farm. So why would they care about the state of the people who live in that farm? The master comes, he takes the best, takes 50% and says, "You have the rest. Do whatever you want." And you think they will look after their own? They will not. That's what we are facing. It's a tragedy of epic proportions. And that's what France is doing to Amazonia and La Republique. If La Republique wants to stay with France and give them 50% of all their exports, that is fine. But let us go. We never signed an accord with France. There is nothing. Over to you.
Madam Starr, I have two questions. Do we have enough time for them? I just wanted to know so I can choose between the two if I have another question.
I think so far, while we're waiting for our audience who are seeing this number, I hope,
Okay.
to get their calls through, we could take
Okay.
those questions, sure.
Okay. Okay. May I ask one of them now? All right. Sir, I also didn't hear in the steps, and as Star mentioned in step one, it might be kind of tucked in there in the health um, part. But um, what about the psychological impact of the tremendous amount of violence and mayhem against the people of Amazonia? Um, how will you address that? How because I have suffered and a terrible, terrible thing, and I know that it took so many years for me to even be uh, intelligently functional. So I know the impact of what these people have gone through, and what is the plan? Is there a mass plan of installing psychological treatment for the people who've undergone this?
Thank you, Ms. Asia Stone. This is one of the preoccupations of the interim government. Having lived in America for 20 years and having seen what our soldiers went through coming back from Iraq, um, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's something that we've actually thought about it. But the good news is that we do have a lot of Amazonians here who have the necessary training, and we can only hope that when the time comes, we are going to obviously open institutions, and with the help of these Amazonians, we can expand them. And we really have to do it. It's really going to be it's a chronic situation, and you can see even right now because the degree of violence that we have experienced in the past 5 years, it is something that we never experienced in the entire 60 years. Entire 60 years. And it's going to be one of the chronic situations that we have to really look into, and the government is well aware. We may not have the immediate funding, but we do have people who are obviously qualified, and we are going to do our best, depending on the gravity, depending on the part of the country. We have to actually open institutions where these individuals will be approached for help because it is really, really bad. And I am happy that you brought this up because I'm going to talk to the cabinet so that we make sure that it is really documented and looked into as soon as we gain independence. Thank you so much.
Just like to add to that thought that as we are asking and opening up to the world to the compassion in their heart to gather expertise from other places, to come in. I
Right.
think it should be well, I'm hoping that it will be a mass um, coverage of people psychologically
Right.
because it's bad what's happened to them, and it
It
has
is.
bad effect, and people mutate
Consequence.
under that. Yes. Okay.
Right. Thank you.
All right. Do you want me to do the last question now, or wait until we? Do you have something, Miss Star?
You go ahead.
No. Okay. Thank you. All right. And the last one is this. Also, is there an overall plan with more detail? I was asking you about that because, as you stated, your seven-step plan is simplified due to the space here. But is that plan accessible to the people? And if so, will it cover items like education and mental health? If this plan is not fully developed, have you canvassed the people on the ground in Amazonia to identify the needs after this massive genocide? Um, in other words,
Uh,
will this plan be available to the people and accessible to the people?
right. Thank you. We do have a plan in the different aspects of our economy. And one thing I also want to let you know that we actually bring in experts both at home and abroad. So whenever possible, people from back home, we actually make them part of this of this group of experts who actually help the government to draft a plan. One of the early activities that I was part of the audit committee. I don't know whether you heard about that particular event, where we're trying to audit the government for the first time so we can tell the Ambazonian people where their money comes from and where it goes. I was actually the head of the audit committee, and we brought in experts, financial experts, chartered accountants from Amazonia. It was very difficult. They were extremely brave, and we held meetings for 40 days and were able to put together this audit report, which was actually sent to the United States Internal Revenue Service. That's what saved the revolution. We're honest, we're open, and anybody who has tried to attack that document just realizes that they hit a hard rock. We open up and we knew the difficulties, we exposed the difficulties that we faced or the challenges, and that was the basis to restructure our system. So it's based on that. You must have heard about MTTB, my trip to Boya, my trip to Boya. Yes, a lot of people were disappointed. Lots of things happened. We never prepared for this war. But at the end of the day, we put together a group of experts and we worked, people back home and people here. We were able, and also, of course, in Europe and the United Kingdom and so on. So we put this together. It's the same thing that we are doing. Every aspect of the interim government, every aspect, we bring in experts both at home and abroad. It's only in situations where they say we are afraid that if they realize that we are part of this committee, we may be killed or something may happen to us. Obviously, we recognize that. We'd rather have them alive and not participate than dead, being part of this committee. So yes, it's an effort that we are doing every day. And remember, the head of some of these groups are not even in America. We have them in Southern Africa. We have some actually in Amazonia, but we're working towards this objective. And again, thanks for recognizing that aspect of our daily lives that we really have to look into when we get independence. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that's about it from us here in the studio. I believe the absence of coal is as a result of us already asking the questions on the many Amazonian minds. I'll take it to be so, because we have come to the end of tonight's Undaunted and the Liberation Movement with Dr. Martin Mungwa, PhD. F.ASCE. Dr. Martin Mungwa, what will be your last words tonight on the Liberation Movement to Amazonians?
I am just so honored to have Miss Asia Storm with us today. I have watched her, I have admired her, and finally, I have the opportunity to actually listen to her talk about love and peace. We hope that with your good office, I think the Black Caucus and other people of goodwill can actually come into this process so we can push La Republic to the table. It is absolutely critical now. We've been in this war for the past 5 years, going 6 years, or possibly 6 to 7 years. And I don't think it's of any good to Amazonia or Africa. We have the Gulf of Guinea, which is critical to trade. And this is creating a situation which is untenable. There are lots of activities that uh, are supposed to happen in order to improve on the livelihood of people in this part of the world. But because of this war, nothing is moving. And I'm so happy that you took time to be with us. I'm so grateful, and I can only extend the interim government's thanks to you in particular, and for all the good work you are doing. And for all Amazonians, this is another day, and I hope you've listened to me. The interim government is here. We're here to make sure that we can bring this war to a close, and we can make sure that we can restart our economies so that we can all get back to normalcy. And this is the
Yes.
least we can do. And I'm here to take any questions that people at the home front may have, and before we can come to the end of this program. And thank you, Stas.
All right, Mime Asia Storm. I believe you also have, some final words to Amazonians and our entire viewers.
Yes. Of course, I had a whole little thing that I wanted to talk about, but I've been so moved by the Secretary's words. Thank you so much. You have brought so much light. It's very important that when you're traveling any road that you need to be able to see where you're stepping. And I feel that we've been enlightened, and I so appreciate that. I promise Amazonians this: I will stop fighting until you're free and safe. Um, I will not do it alone because one lone person just won't do what you need. I will gather as I want 1 billion people, so I know we'll reach hundreds of millions, because that's the way I do things. I reach for the moon and I catch a lot of stars. So I know that we will get many many people behind this battle for you. I am so sorry. I say that to you, Amazonia. My heart breaks for what you've gone through, and the terrible, terrible, terrible um, atrocities against you that are blatantly out here like this. I mean, I live in a civilized world. You know, my ancestors paid deep, deep cost for me to live in a civilized world. And I, for one, won't stand by and see people blatantly murdered and act as if it's something somebody else is doing. It's something that I can't do. Uh, what a ridiculous concept. So I will be fighting for you, and I believe that I'm a fighter, and I can't fathom um, me not making some contact somewhere in my punches. So I know that God is going to bless this journey. I know that you stay safe, stay very, very safe, but stay very, very watchful, because you have atrocious enemies who are thieves in the night. They have no decency. Uh, how do I know that? I don't have to ask anybody. I'm seeing the footage. I'm interviewing. I'm going here. I'm going there. I see, and you're against somebody who has no, no, no care for human life. I'm sorry for that for you, but the only thing I can do is fight for you and do prayer visuals for you. I have many, many people in my life who are in love with prayers, and they are praying for you. And I believe it's going to bring a blanket of protection around you. That's what I believe. And I need you to believe that too, Amazonia. That a blanket of protection is coming around you from the prayers of warriors, saints. The prayers of people who love God are powerful and effective. And these people are praying for you, that you are freed. And I keep telling everybody I talk to, some of the loveliest people are Ambazonian people. I wanted to say about the draft, guys, you giving a new light, a new name. You are what God calls cheerful givers. I'm so proud of you. I've never seen anyone giving with such jubilee and such beauty and laughter, and just even if it's your last dollar, you're giving it like the widow with her copper penny. You're giving it with this sense that you give it. So I applaud you, and of course I am fighting for you. And so thank you so much for having me today, Amber TV.
Thank you
Uh,
so much,
Star
my
Smart,
precious
it
one.
appears, Star Smart, I don't know. I think somebody just called. Uh, Let us just give a few minutes to see whether people can call. Maybe I should take one or two calls if they can try the number that is displayed on the screen there.
Okay.
Unless nobody calls, then we can end the program. Can
Okay.
you ask the viewers if they can call? I think I should answer one or two questions.
Okay. Uh, okay. Are they on? Can they hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I don't think I quite got that. I don't
Can you
think I
hear
quite
me?
got that. You want me to?
Oh, give a few, ask people to call.
Okay.
Someone called me and said my number is not passing. Oh, I don't know. The number on the screen.
Okay.
Um, give it
Okay.
another try. Just
Okay.
announce it for people to call me. If
Okay,
not,
okay, that's fine.
okay.
That's fine. Maybe I should just call the number one more time. Uh,
Yeah.
plus 1201566666245.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay,
That's
let me
the
call the
right
number
number.
out one more time. So, just in case you can't see it very well, so you get the number to call is plus 12015666245. Okay, that's the number to call just in case the reason you haven't called is because you can't see the number. Yes, I think Dr. Martin Mungwa is really anticipating a call from you, so please do so. He wants to answer your questions. Okay.
I
Do you
Nothing
mind
is
we grab
ringing
a cup
here.
of water while we take this break? A quick break.
Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best. We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa with untold stories, Africa's best.
Which kind of life is this? All right, that was a necessary break. That was a necessary break. Do we have the calls yet? Dr.
Okay.
Martin Mungwa?
Okay, Ochiba, you have anything
Okay.
to say?
Yes, SOS, can you get me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah. Okay, I've been trying to call the other number. It has been ringing and ringing and ringing. So I don't have any particular question, but I just want to congratulate you and the Undaunted team and with Mama Aisha Storm for what she is doing.
Yeah.
We are very, very happy for her that if other colored people, African Americans, they could join to ensure that we Africans, we should have a spotlight in the world system. That would be great. So I just wish that we get to Amazonia as soon as possible so that she get to see the tropical forest, the grassland that we have, all the resources, and maybe drink some palm wine and eat kati kati and kati kati and achu and all those kind of things, arrow and the rest. So I want to tell my people on the home front and the international community that we are the former British Southern Cameroonians. And when you grow up, you have the right to take a name. And we have taken a name which is Amazonia. The American general mentioned that name. So we made La Republique as a country, as a people with a government. We did La Republic as groups or self-imposed leaders. Before we met La Republic was already independent, and the territorial integrity of any independent or sovereign country are those boundaries that that country achieved the day that she obtained her independence. La Republic got her independence on the 1st of January 1960 and was admitted into the United Nations system the 20th of September 1960. Southern Cameroon was not part of it. It was just because they discovered that we had a lot of mineral resources and all the like. Since they signed the Accord de Coopération, and that France could not, with La Republic, and France signed it, and Ayijo could not let France get access to that money. That is why France ousted Ayijo to bring Pobia so as to have access to the money. Because in the days of Ayijo, there was some form of economic development because the money was coming from Southern Cameroon. And even till today, La Republic is saying that we provide 62% of the national GDP. So we made La Republic as a government, a people, and we are going to negotiate with them as a country, as a people with a government, not as groups, not as leaders or self-imposed leaders, because we are here to free our country. We are not here to free any self-imposed individual and whosoever. Our goal right now is to liberate ourselves from La Republic, to gain access to our country, so that we can manage our own resources, our own well-being by ourselves. Our goal is not like what La Republic is coming with those splinter groups calling for elections when you cannot be calling for elections, democratic elections or whatsoever, when you are still fighting to liberate yourself. So any genuine Ambazonia fighter should fight La Republic, should know that La Republic is the occupier. Ambazonia has not been occupied by the interim government. It has not been occupied by Dr. Sako. Those who are fighting the interim government or Dr. Sako, it means you've missed the track. Yes, Paul Biya himself said that in France, that they try to assimilate us to no avail. You cannot try to assimilate part of yourself. There's no one here who tried to eat part of his or her own body. The attempt to assimilate us was because we were never part of them when they had their independence, and they signed the African Union Constitutive Act Article 4B to maintain their boundaries as they achieve it per the day of their independence. That is why we are calling on all Ambazonia people to draft for their own freedom. We know that La Republic, there are people that they will always come out there, they commit crimes, they don't want to acknowledge their crimes. We saw a video where La Republic people went and killed, military went and killed armless women.
You have to summarize so that others may ask.
One second, thank you.
Okay.
We saw videos where La Republic military went to northern Cameroon and killed armless women with children on their backs. They came out there, they denied it until when BBC and the international community provided satellite images, they accepted it. They went to Ngabo, they killed our children. They denied it. When evidences were provided, they came and accepted it. So even all those things, the international community is claiming that La Republic should go and investigate her own crimes. For more than 20 years, 30 years now, La Republic has never come out with any fight from any commission of inquiry. So that is what Amazona people must stand for and stand against. You see, even the COVID-19 money that was given to La Republic yesterday, they embezzled all of it. All the money. Nothing. They embezzled all of it. So it is no lockdown. Amazona will continue and we have to free ourselves. No lockdown and forget all those things that impostors and whosoever they try to punish our people.
Thanks, UN. Thanks. Thank you for that detail. Appreciate it. Right. Any other call? Thanks, UN. UN has been a great contributor to this program. and he always brings clarifications and specific details to educate. So if we don't have any other question, I think we can call it a day today. While I look forward to being with you again next week. Over to you,
Yeah,
Stacey.
from UN, Nelson Uchiba, it is already an established fact that
Yeah.
La Republic du Cameroon and Ambazonia are two separate states. Thank you so much for all the details you gave on call. Thank you so much, Nelson Uchiba. And to the two wise elders I had with me today in Undaunted and the Liberation Movement with Dr. Martin Mungwa, I really do appreciate you, Dr. Martin Mungwa, because your program is indeed one that inspires, enlightens, and brings light to the rest of Ambazonia. Thank you so much for having me host your show tonight. Thank you so much, Dr. Martin Mungwa, for being here tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you to both of you.
Okay.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And
Yes.
I don't
And
think, okay, to you, Miss I'm Asha Storm, I don't think Dr. Martin Mungwa is as honored as I am. I personally do love you, Mime Asha Storm. It is an honor as well to have had you tonight on Undaunted, go through the news, and then to the Liberation Movement with Dr. Martin Mungwa. I want to specially thank you for your time here tonight, ma'am. Thank you so much, Mime. And Dr. Martin Mungwa, thank you so much. All right, this is where we come to the end of tonight's Liberation Movement. We call it a close. Good night. Stay blessed. God bless you.
Okay. Thank you.
We the people, ABC Amber TV, Ambazonia Broadcasting Corporation. The voice of the voiceless, the voice of Ambazonia, connecting the world from Africa. With untold stories, Africa's best.
The Amber World Draft Award 22 is here. People, it's time to win again.
This is the time for us to draft until we draft. That must be our slogan and rallying cry now. And along the way, we should be asking ourselves some critical questions.
Are we still enjoying 3 square meals a day? While our boys on the ground lack the basic gear they need to resist the occupiers?
Are we still living a life of luxury and comfort, while our brave restoration forces lack medical supplies at the home front?
Are we still throwing big birthday bashes while our restoration forces lack basic communication equipment to maximize their efforts?
Are we still going on cruises and expensive vacations while our IDFs on the ground go without food and logistics?
Are we still finding excuses not to make the necessary sacrifices and drafting big while our restoration forces lack the game-changing equipment that they so desperately need to bleed the enemy?
On a daily basis, how much are we putting aside for our liberation, knowing that only through the fierce resistance are we going to liberate our beloved country?
Are we providing the federal government and the CIC the means to carry out some of the critical intelligence and other special operations across the national territory?
As we ponder these questions, we must remember that a goal that is not funded is nothing but a wish. And we must not let Ambazonia die as a wish, because we failed to fulfill our patriotic duties by making the great sacrifices befitting a great people.
The World Draft once more is coming to your county. Stand up and be counted. No greater victory was ever achieved than by greater sacrifices. We are enough, so let's draft, draft, and draft until we drop. Our existence as a people depend on that.
It is Award 22. Let us draft until we drop.